Hey guys, Ken Smith, KenSmithFishing.com, and Bodie the Wonder Dog. Listen, this is Lake of the Ozarks. I'm going to break this up into, and I filmed the intro and sort of the whole thing in one piece, but I'm going to break this up into 2 or 3 videos because I got a ton of fish catching footage. So I hope you enjoy this. We had a great time up there, even though none of us even brought a check home. It was a fun week of fishing. So here we go. Ready, buddy? Let's go. Hey fishing fans and mom. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to bring you a little bit of footage here, actually a lot of footage here from Lake of the Ozarks. Say hi, Stella. From Lake of the Ozarks. So I went up there 2 weeks ago to fish the BFL Regional. And, you know, in our world, you know, there's a couple of hundred guys fishing on the pro side or on the boater side. There was one guy who was going to win. So you are not going to win very often in this game. You're going to lose. So, you know, you hear guys say, you know, you either win or you lose. And I kind of look at it as you either win or you learn. And even when I've won in the past, I've learned stuff those days as well. And this was a tournament. Interestingly, if you look at the results, none of the guys out of the Cowboy division made the top 12 cut, I don't think. I know none of them made in the top 6 and made the All-American. It's a little bit foreign to us. And we've all had good tournaments up there on those deep rocky impoundments before, but we didn't this time. And so to take you kind of through my week, I got there, I drove up part of the way. I drove to Joplin Friday night, got up Saturday morning and had to get gas and do some other stuff. And I really didn't get on the lake till about lunchtime on Saturday. And I sort of ran around, didn't get the camera out, which is fine. I didn't catch any fish. But I did see a local tournament weighing in with 47 teams. They could weigh 10 fish per team. And the first day, 6 fish for 15 pounds was leading, and 4 fish for 7 pounds was second. So that was that told me the lake was fishing tough, which I knew. And it was an ugly, really blustery day. So I kind of ran around, fished a little bit, looked at a lot of stuff. Probably burned more gas that day than I did just about the rest of my practice time. Didn't see much I was interested in. I put in at the Hurricane Deck Bridge, for those of you who know the lake, and fished back towards the lake above, and I want to call it Truman. That may not be right, but I went up the river. Didn't see anything, so stayed with a friend, Richard. Matter of fact, this is our buddy Richard, who is a subscriber, watches our videos, and Max the Wonder Dog. So here's Richard's place. We're being hosted down here by our friend Richard, and that's this is Lake of the Ozarks. That's Max the Wonder Dog. Max, what do you think? Life's good, man. Max is retired at 3 years old, and Richard's got the setup for us with his really pretty new 521L. We're trying to get him to come to Texas and go fishing with us this spring. And here's Max the Wonder Dog, who apparently is a qualified mercury technician. He can actually diagnose issues with a mercury motor. So here's Max diagnosing some trim issues on Richard's boat. Hey Max, is there anything wrong with that trim on that motor? You think there's something wrong? What's up in there? I don't know that he's qualified to do mercury work, but Max, what is it? So the next day I went out, and basically the fish were, all the locals were saying the fish were behind. They had really only, I think maybe had 1 frost before we got there, and they had a couple of frost while we were there. And the first morning on the south end of the lake, I was fishing down some docks. I kind of started about halfway back in some creeks, fishing down some docks, and I saw fish come up in the back chasing, just moving giant schools of shad in the backs of these creeks. And I went back there with the tail kicker and with an A-rig and caught a couple of nice keepers, including a 4-pounder, and that kind of got me excited. And I'll tell you, several guys obviously figured this out. Those fish were no secret, and they would show themselves regularly throughout the day. And I caught a ton of fish, and here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I was catching right here. Here's some of the fish I
see that giant I got hooked up here? That's why you tune in to Ken Smith Fishing. So you can see me catch giants like that. Look at that giant. Yeah, baby.
Now, mixed in those fish was also a ton of hybrids and sand bass, and you would catch them. As a matter of fact, in some footage I'll show you here in a little bit, you'll see I actually double up with hybrids and sand bass and largemouths on the same A-rig. And you know, I had one day of practice where I caught probably something in the 22 to 24 pound range, but then I had a day of practice where I wouldn't catch anything. And every day of practice was sunny, and as the day progressed, those bait fish would pile up more and more and more in the back of those drains. And the fish late in the day would come in there and chase those fish. And the first day I had a 5 o'clock weigh-in, and I really thought I could catch those fish late in the day, but the curveball that got thrown to me, well, and actually also in practice, so I had two patterns working. I had those fish in the backs of those pockets, and then I had these buzzbait fish like this one right here.
Keeper in Texas? No, look at the Ozarks. Kentucky!
Now granted, that's a little bitty fish, but we peeled and the way to do this is, by the way, the buzzbait up there is a Crocagator's head knocker. It's made locally. It's an incredibly loud buzzbait. You can hear it on some of this footage. They got very scarce very fast up there, but we were able to get a hold of a couple of them. And, excuse me, what we were doing was we were peeling the wire insulation off of electrical wire and covering up our hooks. And in practice, from about 11 o'clock on every day when the sun got high, I could run shade. And that shade would be tree shade, bank shade, you know, anything with a sort of a bank that faced south was away from it where the sun couldn't get to it. But really, really, really good under any walkways. You'd get jerked on. And I didn't catch those fish. And I saw some of them. Some of them were little fish. Some of them were rock bass or we call them rock bass. Goggle eye, we used to call them as a kid in Arkansas. But some of them were big fish just slurping that buzzbait down. So I really felt like with the sunshine, I could catch those fish up in the day. I didn't. And I think what got me was that sunshine and shade gave you targets to fish those fish at. And when I fished those targets on tournament morning, those fish weren't there. Those fish had scattered, and I didn't commit to it. And the reason I say that, so I ran to the backs of a couple of those pockets trying to catch some early fish. And I ran into a guy about noon or 1 o'clock the first day who was fishing the same stuff I had been fishing, and he culled a fish in front of me. And we talked for a minute, and then I saw at the weigh-in, he had 14 and a half pounds, and he was throwing a whopper plopper. So, excuse me. Hey, y'all knock that off. Stella and Sammy are having a big time behind the camera, so if the camera gets jarred loose, you'll know what's going on. You may hear some growling. They're having a ball right now. So when that stuff, I don't think I spun out at all, really. I continued fishing that stuff, but I just could not get the quality bites, and I lost a lot of time trying to make those shallow fish bite, and they never bit. And the first day I weighed what I'm pretty sure is the smallest limit of my fishing career, including some really bad tournaments on the Red River in Shreveport and down out of Natchitoches. I culled to 5 fish that weighed 6 pounds and 10 ounces, and I was out of it. I knew I was. It was, no way to make that back up unless I caught a giant sack. So the next day I tried to catch a giant sack. And I did do one really smart thing the second day. It's funny, in practice I was running pockets that I would see hardly anybody else in. Tournament day, there were guys everywhere. Second day, well, let me back up. I got 2 key bites during practice that should have clued me in. One of them was a 3-pounder, and one of them was this fish. What those 2 fish were, actually, and these 2 fish as well. Those last 2 fish were on a main lake, first dock into a pocket or into a creek. The other fish, though, were fish that were towards the backs of these creeks, under boathouses, and what I sort of formulated in my head later, and by the way, so Dickie clued me into this. He caught them, now he didn't catch them great, but he had 10, almost 11 pounds the first day, which would have could have kept you in the running. You could have made the cut to fish the last day with that. He just didn't. He didn't have a good day to follow it up with. But all of his fish were on the ends of the docks, and sort of what I think was going on was those were the fish that were in the backs of the pockets late in the day when those bait bunched up chasing, and they were just getting under those docks and sort of feeding sporadically when something presented itself to them. And that's where I screwed up. I did not figure that out, and I got the bites in practice to figure that out. So that's my lesson I learned here. I didn't figure that out until Dickie and I talked after the first day of the tournament. And then the second day I went out and I had a decent stringer, and I actually knocked off at half an hour early because unfortunately I wasn't paying attention. I didn't get in my text message telling me what time to weigh in. And I thought I weighed in at 3, and I didn't weigh in until 3:30, and I actually caught a keeper 5 minutes before we left. So, I learned. I should have either committed. I knew those better fish that I was getting bit on in practice were out on those main lake corners in the shade. Had I committed to that the first day, like that guy did that I ran into, it was a guy out of Oklahoma, I don't remember his name, I think I probably would have caught those fish. But when I ran those key spots that had been shade spots in practice and didn't get bit, I didn't panic. Maybe I did. I just realized I needed